Hello everyone and welcome back to the Catster YouTube channel with me, Dr. Luqman, bringing you another cat topic of discussion today. As always, this is your gentle reminder to please do hit that subscribe button. We love a like and of course we welcome your comments. Now today we're going to be talking about something that affects a lot of people and they might be wondering if it affects their pets as well, specifically their pet cats. I'm talking about loneliness. So, we would be exploring, can cats actually feel lonely in the way that humans do? And, if they do feel lonely, how would you be able to tell that your cat is lonely and what you should do? So this is going to be a different, somewhat emotional topic. And of course, loneliness is something that a lot of people struggle with. And, it is definitely something that, in my opinion, warrants more attention. If you do know someone, who is lonely, or if you are feeling lonely, please do know that there's help out there. And there are always people, you can talk to. If anything, just drop me a message in the comments. I'll be very happy to reply to you. But let's move on to our, fellow cats. And let's explore if they can feel lonely or not. Generally speaking, healthy, well-adjusted cats that do not have any, behavior issues or medical issues do not feel lonely, even when they are left alone, when you leave the house, for example, to go to work, etc. To understand why, it is worth it to kind of look at the social structure of cats in general. So the social structure of domestic cats is very fascinating. They are primarily soloists of sorts in terms of they are completely fine being on their own, living on their own in the wild, and the only time they would have the company of other cats is when they are mating or when they have kittens. Cats are generally territorial, so domestic cats are territorial instinctively. So what cats usually do is female cats have a home range, and usually on the outskirts of this home range or some kind of overlap of this home range is where their former female kittens will stay. So once their female kittens are big enough to, fend for themselves, they will go and establish their own home ranges, usually close to their mothers. In some instances, they will overlap. However, they tend to avoid each other under general normal circumstances. Male cats, however, will usually venture really far from where they were born, and male cats are notoriously territorial, perhaps even more so than females, because they want to mate with all the females in their territory. Now, at times, cats, especially female cats, do form colonies. So if there are feral cats near you, you might have seen this. So a lot of feral cats sometimes do end up, setting shop together with each other. This sort of colony is usually called a clouder or a glaring. And female cats generally tend to have this kind of social structure where they share, similar areas, but they don't go so far as to sharing their resources. That means even within this setting, they don't actually hunt together like, a pride of lions would. And they don't necessarily share the duties of raising their young together or fending off strange males, etc. Mostly cats in clouders or glarings will, find their own food, fend them for themselves, and generally have a shared space where their kittens will be, and so on and so forth. So it's a very loose sort of social structure, and there's no hard and fast rules of how many cats can be inside, said society of clouder or glaring. As long as each cat feels like their needs are met, like they have enough territory, space, food, water, etc., they will kind of be there. There will be issues if, cats feel like they're being challenged for something that they consider a resource. Again, male cats will definitely be an exception to this, and usually male cats form coalitions with other male cats that they grew up with or other male cats that they were desensitized to at a young age that are around the same age as they are. And male cats generally do not form the same kind of colonies known as clouders or glarings. Of course, this slightly changes when you have a pet cat, and pet cats don't necessarily have the same challenges as other cats do. And, it is definitely possible to house multiple pet cats together, particularly if they were desensitized to other cats, as kittens. So it is actually somewhat different when you do have pet cats. But fundamentally, the important thing to keep in mind is that cats are perfectly fine being solitary. They can get along in groups. However, a cat can be considered completely normal, fine, left to their own devices, and content with themselves, as a solo pet. And when you leave the house, let's say for work or something, 8 hours, 10 hours, your cat would generally not feel lonely. And the other important thing to keep in mind is loneliness is very complicated in humans in a weird way that loneliness actually feeds upon itself. So if you do know someone who is lonely, you might have noticed that yes, they're lonely and they know they're lonely, but for some reason they tend to avoid people because they kind of get used to that sort of bubble that they're in. Now, this is not identified in cats. Yes, definitely we do have behavior issues in cats, but again, they would not feel loneliness in the way a human would. Cats, however, can experience something known as separation anxiety syndrome. Now, this syndrome has been identified in cats in literature and as early as the early 1990s. So it's definitely not something new. However, it does seem to be in the spotlight in terms of the veterinary world in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. So a lot of, people adopted cats during the pandemic, and they had what we like to call as vets, COVID babies or pandemic babies. In other words, kittens, even puppies that were adopted during the pandemic and were very much used to their humans being around all the time, 24/7. And now, as adult cats, they find themselves in a place where suddenly their humans went back to work. And they don't know what to do because to them it is completely abnormal to have several hours away from their caretakers in such context. Again, this gained a lot of attention and it gained somewhat like an uptrend after the pandemic subsided. But we do still see cases like this going on. So yes, these cats can definitely develop separation anxiety syndrome. And separation anxiety syndrome, as the name suggests, means that your cat is extremely uncomfortable with your absence. Your cat is so used to you being there all the time that they suddenly don't know what to do when you're not around. So they end up acting out, and they act out with behavior changes that are undesirable. The most common behavior change that you might notice is inappropriate urination and inappropriate defecation. So they will pee in places where they're not supposed to pee or where they did not used to pee, or they will defecate in places where they did not used to defecate. Some people like to call these as your cat's being petty, and they say that, for example, I stayed out for one overtime shift and this is how my cat repays me, by like peeing on my carpet or pooping on my carpet, etc. But these are the main signs of separation anxiety syndrome. So sometimes it does help to take a step back and for a moment just think that your cat is not necessarily acting like, out of human emotions, so like etc., like pettiness. And it is important to consider that there might be something else that is sort of in the driver's seat, and that is actually causing your cat to act out. Other signs that are associated with separation anxiety syndrome include destructive behavior. So your cat may start destroying things that they normally left alone and showed no interest in, and excessive meowing or excessive vocalization. So this could be meowing, yowling, howling, etc. And most people are actually able to pick up the excessive vocalization first, because the minute they step out of the door, so the minute you go out, you would hear your cat suddenly let out this sort of, people like to call it a cry, like a really desperate kind of lonely sound that honestly does sound very sad. Other people actually notice it when they come back. So when they come back, they hear their cat sort of like, they like to call it complaining, that, where were you? Or their cat will be very, very happy and excited to see them when they come back. But let's say you come back from work, you just got in, you took your shoes off, you put your bag, you put your umbrella, your coat, whatever, and then you need to use the restroom. So you go in the bathroom for a second and you close the door. Now, some people actually pick up instantly that their cat was not happy because initially their cat is fine when they came in, but the minute they went to the bathroom, the cat just assumes that they're gone again and starts producing this very loud, almost, like a symphony, kind of like an opera, like a very tragic sound, like they're crying in a sense, but it's essentially vocalization that is not considered normal. And that is actually how most people pick up that there is something off with their cat. Again, this doesn't necessarily have to be related to the pandemic, although we did see a large rise in such cases after the pandemic. It can sometimes happen in very strange circumstances. Holidays are a very good example of this. Sometimes you might think that, okay, I have a pet cat, I should not leave my house on the holidays because I know my pet cat really misses me. So let me just have family and friends over instead. So my cat knows that I'm there. But at the same time, 'tis the season for celebrations or whatever. And you have friends and family over. Of course, being the host, you would want to be gracious and, give attention to your guests. Your cat may feel separated from you because they're not receiving the same amount of attention they used to. And again, your cat can actually end up acting out, or in worse situations, your cat can develop health issues. And the most common health issue, which usually culminates from stress in cats, are issues involving the urinary tract or the urinary system. Now, it is very important to keep in mind that sometimes people have an initial state of euphoria when they say, finally, my cat stopped peeing outside the litter box and is fine now, only for them to not realize their cat is not peeing at all. Now, this can happen with cats that have a history of stress. Cats, when they're stressed, can develop urinary blockages. In other words, the urine cannot come out like it's supposed to. And this is considered a medical emergency. So you should not have it looked over by a vet tomorrow, after the holidays, next week or anything. You need to immediately get your cat to a veterinarian if they have not been able to pass urine for a day. Anywhere. Carpet, litter box, etc. If your cat does not urinate for a day, it is very, very important to seek medical attention promptly because this is an emergency. However, what's fascinating here is even separation anxiety syndrome, which is, a recognized behavior disorder in cats and actually in fact in dogs as well, is a thing. Again, it's important to realize that your cat is not feeling lonely in the context of a human feeling lonely, because this disorder itself is not considered normal. Like, it would not happen to a, well-adjusted, healthy cat that did not have over-attachment issues as a kitten or as a young adult, was, used to you gradually stepping away over periods of time, and is now, perfectly fine being at home for 8, 10, 12 hours while you're at work, provided they have access to, fresh water, toys, their litter box, perhaps their favorite bed, perhaps the fan is on or the air conditioning is on so they don't feel too stuffy, too warm, or too cold. As long as they're safe and secure, they should not actually develop this. So even cats that do have separation anxiety syndrome, it is not actually akin to loneliness in a psychological way that loneliness affects humans. So it is still technically wrong to say your cat would feel lonely, because they would not technically be lonely. They would be dealing with something else which has a different, pathophysiological process, different clinical signs, different manifestations than a person who is feeling lonely. Now, if you do suspect your cat is feeling lonely, the most important thing is to not jump the gun and get another cat. Now, please hear me out. There are instances where cats do benefit from the inclusion of another cat in their life. Yes, that is, undeniable that there are instances where this is true. However, it does not apply to every single cat. So, the first thing you have to do is, again, make sure that your cat is medically sound. This involves having your veterinarian look over your cat. Because again, if your cat is acting out in a way that is not normal, or if your cat is displaying signs of behavior that you consider as undesirable, it is usually either a medical cause or a behavior cause. And how you identify which one it is by having your vet look over your cat to make sure they're not having a medical reason as to why they're acting out. And please do keep in mind that these two are not mutually exclusive. That means your cat may be having both at the same time, which means you are not wrong in assuming your cat has a behavior issue. At the same time, your cat may have a medical issue as well. So they can, yes, definitely come together. So first things first, have your cat looked over by a veterinarian. Rule out medical issues. This is obviously your veterinarian's job. And again, it is always worth it to discuss behavior issues with your veterinarian as well, because they can give you advice or they can lead you to the correct people who can help you as professionals. Now, when dealing with separation anxiety syndrome, there is no certain formula that works for all cats. And actually, the treatment program or the rehabilitation and retraining program for your cat will depend on the severity of your cat's syndrome. However, we can discuss some treatment plans and modules that you could expect advised to you or implemented for you. One of these may be changing the times at which you interact with your cat. You may be advised to play with your cat before you leave the house for your work or before you leave the house for the day. And you may also be advised to feed your cat before you leave. So interacting with your cat before you leave and sort of tiring them out, making sure they're well fed, may end up with a cat that is relatively relaxed, calm, and may actually, opt to go to bed. Again, this depends on a case-by-case basis. There's no guarantee it'll work for your cat, but it may be advised for your cat. You may also be advised to use perhaps interactive toys or interactive treat dispensers in your absence. These will actually call your cat over with your voice, which you can pre-record. A lot of these products also come with apps or programs that you can install on your phone, which have webcam facilities so you can actually look at your cat while you're away and even call them over with your voice and dispense treats for them. This can somehow help cats that are, struggling with your absence, especially in the beginning. However, it's important to keep in mind that treats do have calories. We would love to have treats with no calories. Oh my God, I would love treats with no calories. But the point being, if your cat does have treats that are dispensed in a way for you to interact with them in your absence, you do have to keep in mind that you will have to adjust their nutritional take or manage their exercise so that they are not overfeeding, because an overfeed cat may lead to an overweight cat, which may lead to an obese cat, which comes with a spiraling amount of health issues that you do not want to deal with. Another thing you may be advised is to change the schedule of how you interact with your cat when you come back. Now, this varies on a case-by-case basis. Some people subscribe to the philosophy that, they are back and they're going to give their cat all the attention that, the cat is craving right away, and this is going to help their cat with their anxiety. But inadvertently, this can actually make things worse. So there are usually custom programs which kind of like spread out the way you interact with your cat, the times you interact with your cat, etc. Again, this will be custom made for you depending on the severity of your cat's condition. In essence, they do not want you to inadvertently reinforce a negative behavior. So sometimes it is very tempting when you come home to immediately pick up your cat and cuddle with them. But if your cat is dealing with separation anxiety syndrome and needs to learn to accept the fact that you will be away for some time, then this might not be the best thing to do right away. Again, sometimes it does help, but sometimes it does not help. It really does depend on your cat. In some severe cases, your veterinarian may prescribe medication for your cats. So these are anti-anxiety medications, but these would be naturally prescription-based, and it's something you should follow your veterinarian's lead on. Finally, it's important to keep in mind that yes, at times, a new addition to the family in the form of a kitten or another cat may help. But again, this is not foolproof, and again, this is not something that works all the time. In addition, if you are bringing a new cat into the house, you have to be prepared mentally and financially. And please keep in mind that new additions to the house should not be made immediately. There needs to be a quarantine period of at least 2 weeks where you have your new cat in an area that your old cat cannot access, and vice versa. And this means that all their worldly possessions should be separate. This includes their toys, litter boxes, food bowls, water bowls, beds, anything that the cat uses. So that's it for this video, guys. Again, it is a very interesting topic when we do talk about human emotions and how well they are understood or identified in our pet cats. Call it fortunate or call it unfortunate, cats do not feel loneliness in the same way that humans do. However, cats are susceptible to separation anxiety syndrome. But once again, the physiological ramifications of separation anxiety syndrome is different than the physiological, ramifications of loneliness in humans. So technically, we cannot say that cats do feel loneliness like humans do, but cats definitely do feel stuff that perhaps we don't feel. And it is important to appreciate the fact that, your cat is a different species, and anytime your cat does act, in a way that you consider abnormal or undesirable, you do have to make sure that you have them looked over by your veterinarian and not just brush it off as them expressing something akin to a human emotion. For now, this is me, Dr. Luqman, signing off, wishing you all a lovely day. I'll catch you all on the next one. Once again, if you are feeling lonely or you know someone who is suffering from loneliness, please do reach out. And of course, if all else fails, our comment section is there for you. Thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.